Thank you for trusting such deep questions to me, but
You seem up to the task.
sure, yes. Hide the hold the answers. It's funny, the first day I came into the house, there was a basket of baguette, and then next to it was the palm oil and the plantain. And I did a photo. I was like, yes,
Yeah, this is where we are.
this is where we are, and this is where we bring. And it's a nice idea.
After years of legal battles, political negotiations, and fierce protests from activist groups, an agreement has finally been reached on the reparations to compensate for colonial exploitation, human trafficking, and slavery. We have decided to invest our share of the payments in a unique project, the Museum of Black Futures. My name is Richard Kofi, co-founder and director of our museum, and together we're building a revolutionary institution of liberation that challenges the conventions of what a museum is. Maybe we should continue to spend more time exploring what a museum means to us, as a term, as a space. Today, a really good friend of the museum will give her take on this. It's none other than architect, artist and researcher Patti Anahory from Cabo Verde. Patti is a practicing architect with a master's degree from Princeton University and a bachelor's in architecture from the Boston Architectural College. She works across urbanism, art, pedagogy, and curatorial practice. Her work focuses on interrogating the presupposed relationship of place and belonging in reference to identity, memory, race, and gender constructs. We've been brought together by the wonderful researcher, curator, and community organizer Mamfatou Niang, and she invited us to join her on a residency at the Terra Foundation in Giverny, Normandy, France. Patti has since become a great friend of the Museum of Black Futures. In our conversation, she'll make reference to our time in Normandy, the kitchen, and us cooking together. Oh, and it was a bit chilly, so she got a little bit of a cold.
My name is Patti Anahory. I'm from Cabo Verde, but I'm also from São Tomé. I'm also from many other places. But lately I've been saying that I'm a citizen of the Atlantic. I actually was born on a ship.
Really?
Yes, on the Atlantic Ocean, on the way to São Tomé and Príncipe. So my early years were spent in São Tomé, and after independence of the African countries, my father, who was Cabo Verdean, we went back to Cabo Verde in 1975. And that's where I grew up, and then pursued my studies in architecture in the United States, and I've been back in Cabo Verde for about 16 years. After returning to Cabo Verde, I've been confronting what it means to be an architect. I've been confronting the legacies of the discipline, and also the practice, the commercial practice of architecture, which is very much client-based. And in our context, the majority of the population does not resort to architects to build. It's what is so-called informal building or clandestine building, so very problematic ways of referring to city making through self-construction. So after going back, it was very interesting for me to also understand the role of architecture in creating meaning and defining meaning. So from an academic perspective, it has been very important to understand what the paradigms are and how are we understanding and how are we producing space in our context, for our context, and who is brought into that conversation. So it's very common that our countries are looking outwards. We continue even in this kind of post-colonial situation, meaning a post-independence or post-coloniality is also being questioned as an idea because the colonial continuities are so present. But how we continue to reference, our reference systems continue to be the North, continue to be from the global North or the West. So it's been important for me to also be critical of the decisions that in Cabo Verde we make and our understanding of what quote unquote development is. So after being in academia for a while, I engaged in this project called Storia no Lugar, myself and my partner, Cesar Scofield Cardozo. And Storia no Lugar it has a double entendre, double meaning in Cabo Verdean. It means stories of places, so in the sense of storytelling as a practice, but also putting the story in its rightful place, getting to the core of things. So, and also lugar for Cape Verdeans means the ground, but the ground as where I plant, where I'm a steward of the ground. It's like
More like the soil?
the soil, but it's more like no, it's where I have my crops.
Oh, yeah.
I have minha lugar.
Yeah.
Minha lugar is not only my place, but it's minha lugar where, I have crops, where I'm tending to the ground.
Yeah.
So there's this relationship. So it's been kind of a counter-narrative. I mean, I don't want to say counter-narrative, but expanding the narratives, because we are reproducing a lot of the narratives. Oh, this part of the city is problematic. This part of the city is what we aim for. Our governments are, pursuing kind of a neoliberal agenda. So I feel that we are reproducing a lot of the colonial discourse and rhetoric.
Yeah. And are you also within this movement trying to give more validation and recognition to the types of architecture or design that comes from the community?
Yes, I don't, it's more like, I try to say it not so much as architecture, but as producing space.
Yeah.
And producing meaning, because it's about meaning making, our practices. So whether it's about architecture as a validation of something that is worthy of being called architecture or not, I think it's breaking down those validation processes. It's about producing space. It's about defining relationships to space. And those relationships to space are relationships among people, our relationships of sociability, our relationship to the land, our relationship to history.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a time and space, right? We're not, it's not architects who are the authority on material culture, spatial material culture. I've been very interested in creating spaces of exchange and of critical engagement. So at this stage in my life, I think, what can I do and how can I contribute towards really understanding, a more complex understanding of the space. And I've been very centered on centering Africa and centering African island perspectives, in a more critical way. And my dream, if I think about it, is to be in conversation with people like you, people like the wonderful group of people that we've been spending time with in the past few days, to help us break down these narratives and imagine other possibilities, or as you say, other futures for ourselves. How can we think of spaces or even structures, let's say, or that could be unstructured, right? So I use the word structure. Sometimes the vocabulary lacks. We lack the vocabulary of what these spaces can be, right? Because we don't want them to be institutionalized or institutions. We don't want to, but at the same time, we don't have the vocabulary. So a lot of it is to even imagine what the vocabulary and what the form of this formless thing could be. Of course, we call it a center because That's the word that we have.
Yeah, or that it centralizes something, an idea or a conversation. Yeah.
But at the same time, we're so much very critical of centering and
Yeah.
of, we're not critical of centering, but we understand that when you center something, you also leave other things out. So
Yeah, it's always a center in relationship to something that's in the periphery. And what
exactly.
what is which? Yeah.
So I think a lot of this has been a search for finding a vocabulary.
My alarm goes off. No, but yeah, we have the Museum of Black Futures, and we really want to break free from certain language that surrounds the building of an institution. So there's always this need for money, for funds, and this and that. And therefore, all of these conversations are all about monetary value of objects, of material culture, of the building itself. But we would like to add like certain ideas of what value can also mean and represent to the community, for instance, or how to maximize certain capital, which is not necessarily monetary capital, but more reparational capital, for instance, and see if we can create a dialogue that is way more inclusive to formulating the necessities of the community instead of only thinking about, okay, how can we cause and effect this, right? With this money, we can do this. Okay, that's fine. But how can we imagine beyond that and such? But I like what you said about creating these platforms. And one of the things that we've been discussing or imagining is what would happen if this Museum of Black Futures would be really a outer national project, so that it has like branches and like these connections. And can you maybe imagine with me what, especially in a Cabo Verdean context, what it would mean, or what would it contribute if that platform that you mentioned is actually an international platform, but for the local community? Can you maybe imagine a little bit with me what those relations could bring?
Let's brainstorm together.
Let's go. Let's go.
And it's interesting because it continues the conversation that we had in this morning, and it was about what form or what, I'm a spatial thinker. I mean, we all are, but that's the lens through which I engage with the world, and to think of space, you have to think of relationships within space. Otherwise, there is no space, right? It's a relational. It's a relational by well, not essence. I don't like that word either. But it's relational.
Yeah.
That's the only way that you actually create space, right? Otherwise, it's void. And we were thinking, how can it operate, right? Does it need to move? Is it an itinerant idea, which is part of it? So it needs to move. It needs to be thought in movement. Does it dock? Does it ground?
Yeah.
Does it, dock, somewhere? Does it float? How can it really operate? And I think that I've been thinking about diaspora a lot, right? And movement. And it is really, how can it move? Maybe physically, of course, it needs to move physically in the sense that we want to engage people, but it also needs to be grounded in its locality. So I think that we don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily, and everything doesn't have to be a counter proposal, although we know how we do want to transform the way things have been done.
Yeah.
And the violences and erasures that has perpetuated. But I think it's the intention is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So if we do have a space that is so grounded and connected to its community, in conversation with your space, and we are able to be in conversation with each other and be immersive, I think we could make it happen.
Yeah.
But I don't know what form it will take. I think it needs to be itinerant. I think we could do some almost like what are the 5 things that it needs to, what it needs to take into consideration.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it's just
Also for a partnership to
Yes.
arise, right? What could a set of rules, or not really rules, but a set of ideals be?
ideals, or or
What
of course the ethics of it also.
yeah. You have to have an ethical bond as well. And I think that it's also interesting to kind of look at our people are scattered all over the universe. So I think it will also be interesting to map that out as well and see what kind of networks we have. You mentioned meaning, right? That architecture is also kind of, it has a storytelling aspect of it. It has adding meaning because we are here together. What kind of meaning could we address to could we link to the fact that in Paris we have huge Black communities,
Yes.
in Brussels, in Amsterdam, in Cabo Verde, in Ghana, and what does it mean for us to link those or to create an infrastructure that connects those localities? Because now everybody is focused on the center of Amsterdam, for instance. That's the economic heart of it. But maybe that neighborhood in Amsterdam Southeast is way more internationally minded and connected to their cousins in Brussels and in Kinshasa and in,
Absolutely.
if we reimagine that and create a different value system around that we could maybe share resources easier and connect to each other easier.
Because these places are in communication already with each other.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, whenever people come to Praia, I always take them to Sucupira, which is our market. Okay, yeah, we like markets, whatever. But it's the most, I mean, I also don't like this word, but I have to use it because we don't have another one.
Of course, yeah.
So a very cosmopolitan space, because it's where there's like all the mainland African communities are. That's where you go and find, the Guineans and the Nigerians and the Cabo Verdeans, of course, and you need Milo, or you need plantain, or you need this, or you need that, and that's like, and people are in communication all over, and they're in communication with their own diaspora, right? I think that the network is already there.
It's already there.
And who do we I think it's who do we bring into the conversation also?
Yeah.
And I think that we need to expand who we bring into the conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. There's sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
go for it. We're brainstorming.
Yeah. There's this interesting. I used to have a project which is called C'est l'époque. This is our time, or something.
Oh.
And it was imagining restitution as what would it mean for us to decentralize restitution of stolen African art from the museums and put them in charge of it, or actually right now it's the national governments that are in charge, but what if we kind of skip those museums, and what if we use the barbershops as our vessels for that communication and networking? Because I bet that my barbershop that I used in that example for that, it was a film project. It's Eagle Hair Salon in in my hometown Arnhem. It's been there for almost 20 years. Has this huge Pan-African clientele.
Yes.
Like, it would make way more sense to put them in charge of the contact with the continent instead of that one white curator at the Museum Volkenkunde.
Or even one,
Any curator.
one person.
One
It
person.
has to be
Yeah.
a collective project. We have to think collectively. And it is those spaces that have all the networks already established through the cousin, the friend,
And all the complicated politics of those localities also are represented within that community, probably, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's like I think that it is that we have to, who do we bring in conversation, and even what spaces become legitimized as spaces for thinking these things. And
Exactly. And I like that you mentioned those for instance 5 ideals for a collaboration, because then you could imagine a center, like you said, but also you kind of reimagine what it means to collaborate with the museum. do you need to be another museum to loan an object, or can you be just a collective of people hanging out at the barbershop?
Yeah, what are the conditions that need to be in place for that
Exactly.
to happen?
Exactly. That's actually an interesting way of thinking about it.
Care.
Yeah.
Maybe it's I think care, I mean, it's being used a lot, but like, conditions that that particular place or space or community cares for that.
Yeah, exactly.
It has a relationship with it, understands the meaning or value of it.
So we discussed a traveling museum. We discussed care, and you briefly mentioned value. But what is it that we are collecting? What is it that our museum holds? How can we make a collection, build a collection that is a proper representation of our Black, pan-global, pan-diasporal experience? Something that could really link the diaspora to the continent.
The same thing, just more well done. So you choose where you fall. And then we've got some vegan meat that is cooked in olive oil, rosemary, garlic, and black pepper. We have a mushroom bake.
Oh, and in the background you hear interdisciplinary artists Zana Masumbuka and Alexi Piskin brag about this amazing dinner that they just made. Excuse me, I'm sidetracking.
As well as vegan cheese. So everything is vegan except for the meats, basically. We've got roasted potatoes with the rosemary. We've got plantain. We have some seasonal vegetables with caramelized onion, a watermelon salad with cucumber, and this vegetable I discovered today that tasted amazing. So I thought I should incorporate it. I don't know what it is. The chef knows. It's like this leafy, frozen.
Oh, yeah, it's called ficoid in French, but I don't know.
You had like a name that was like frozen or something.
Yeah, it's for kind of frozen salad.
Yeah,
like
it's so good.
It's delicious. And then over there, Alexi made a...
This Italian tomato sauce
just like
with garlic, and basil. This chicken cassava,
Yeah, it's like cassava, yeah.
yeah.
That can go with the sauce, but that can go with the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have it with the tomato
Tomato
sauce.
sauce.
Plantain, please enjoy, and sorry it took so long.
Yes, thank you so much. We're not Woo! We are with a lot of people. Yeah, so the plan is to take your plate and then go sit in the cinema room.
This is the one that you're going to give me that 2 hours to think about it.
Of course. We can edit. 1,000 years later.
I'm back. My voice is back. I have a very nice proposal for you. I think that I want to answer, but it's like we are so... When we think of museums, it goes immediately to objects, right? And we know, it's just, no matter how much we train ourselves, and this is what I'm saying, the vocabulary of, it's always a language issue, right? The language of, and I'm thinking, can you collect smells and spices and...
Okay, let's unpack that idea.
Because when we got back today, were you there? And Mom was like, oh my gosh, this house is smelling like we're in, Black house or African house because last night we cooked, right? Or I didn't cook, but there was cooking here. And it's so visceral.
Yeah.
It's so visceral.
Exactly. But then if you want to collect that smell, you have to have cooking in the museum.
Yes.
Yeah.
As an activity, as a practice,
as a form of celebrating culture,
preserving, storytelling, sharing, right?
Exactly. So not necessarily the eating, but also the cooking.
The cooking.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that it's a very important part.
Yeah, and I also like how we arrived here, that it's the smell that you want to collect or that you want to document for some reason or also present to your audience, and therefore you need that ritual of cooking together and eating the day before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There you go.
That's interesting.
And maybe, if you wanted to linger, because it's a temporal thing, right? Because it lingers and it dissipates, right? So maybe if you wanted to linger, then you know that every other day you have to cook, or every 2 days, or maybe it only lasts as long as it needs to last, and you know.
And then call it collection management.
Yes, and also you open it up to, you don't have full control of it because somebody else cooks different. Everybody cooks differently, and depending on the spice that you leave out, or depending on what you bring in, you're going to have a variety of. That's it.
Exactly. That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. And also something that could really work well in collaboration with international communities outside of that center.
Absolutely.
Because everybody can cook and come together like this. And the recipes are all in our family, right? We all have a grandma that knows how to make these things.
Yes.
So it also kind of validates that specialization in kind of pursuing this or bringing this legacy forward. To also center that aspect of it as well.
And I think there's an element, we're talking to Mom today, and there has to be room for experimentation and erring and, you know, trying and messing up and messing. And I think that it could be very powerful to try these ideas that may work or may not work. But they were taught. They had a proposition which was based on something that speaks to us.
Exactly. So in order to collect those smells or to present those smells, we need family recipes. We need people that want to cook. We need to think in ingredients. Maybe we need a garden.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So then you know, it grows, right? And what produce do you have? What do you use? And I mean, here was very interesting. They went to the farm here. But I have a friend that is an artist, Amabi, and she works a lot with her family's from Ghana. She grew up in the U.S., but she actually plants crops that her grandmother brought back. Right? So it's this kind of stewardship with the land, right? And whether it's the okra or it's the whatever it is, that was part of her grandmother creating her own world within this, movement in the diaspora. So I think it's very interesting because then it begins to lay its own roots and its own tentacles in, do we have okra here? No, we don't have. We need okra. Do we plant it? Do we go to the market?
Yeah.
Do we go to the, African markets in, Amsterdam? Do we need to get the seeds?
Yeah. Do we need to get the seeds? Yeah, I like that idea. Also because, for instance, in West African history, there have been a lot of women that were enslaved that, when they went out, before they were enslaved, they would already kind of anticipate on the possibility of being captured and taken hostage. So they would braid certain seeds into their hair so that wherever they ended up, they would have their trusted plants eventually. And I think that also these types of stories are so, it's a different type of material culture, but it definitely is material culture. And it nurtures all of these stories about the priorities of our ancestors, basically, on what survival looks like for them, for us. And to bring that together in such a way, in such a workshop type of form, or like being together, like being in community, to eventually have that smell in that room, for it to be presented to the people. So it can also kind of use different scales on how it operates and how inclusive it is as well.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, the first day I came into the house, there was a basket of baguettes.
Oh, yeah.
And then next to it was the palm oil and the plantain. And I did a photo. I was like, yes,
Yeah, this is where we are.
This is where we are, and that's where we bring. And it's a nice idea.
Definitely. Okay, I've got another one. So let's say the Museum of Black Futures were to get their hands on a huge ethnographic collection with a very problematic history, but it's there. So, we can do something with it. It's there for us to present, to share, to do something with. How do you think a collection like that could operate within such an international network? Like the network museum that has like these branches in Cabo Verde and in Brussels and everywhere. And also, what do you think that the value is of keeping such historic collections or working with such historic collections in a museum about the future? It's a really big question. 3,000 years later.
Oh, thank you for trusting such deep questions to me, but
You seem up to the task.
sure, yes. Hide and hold the answers. I mean, objects hold meaning, right? And not regardless, we acknowledge and we know the extreme violence that was, whew. What do you do with them?
May I ask you another question?
Yes,
How would a
Is it easier or harder?
material culture like that, for instance, in Kisi, Nkondi, how do you think it would feel if it were to engage in that cooking ceremony that we just explained? How do you think it will feel?
I think it would feel for who to engage in that.
For the object? How would the object feel?
object.
How would the
How would
spirit
it
feel? Just speculate with me.
In that particular ritual that we are proposing.
Yeah.
Of the cooking.
Of the cooking, of the gaining the seed, the garden and the seeds. How would it feel for that object to be surrounded by that instead of being in a glass?
I think that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
I think it would be, I think that I'd like to believe in intention as a powerful tool. So I think that it would re-signify it also, because also things change meaning with time. And it's also important for us this is where the object is right now.
Yeah.
Yes, it has its history. It's been a violent history. It's been extracted from its entire universe of, spirits and society and and meaning.
A maker.
And maker, right? But it is here now.
Yeah.
Right? And we cannot go back. So now that it's here, how can we also re-signify it, give it a new life? Because we cannot take it back to that where it is, right?
Or we could, but not necessarily now.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it will take a couple of years to bring it back.
But even that
Yeah.
space has been transformed. It
Exactly.
has grown. It has changed. It has morphed, of course, right? Because that's what happens, right? We are not fixed in time, or we are not, rigid beings. Even our, ancestors. But I think that we could welcome it. We could engage with it with the concerns of the time, of this moment. We could reframe it within the concerns of this moment. We could reframe it within the struggles of this moment and this time. And I think that could be a strategy.
Yeah.
For even rethinking, how does it return? What is a return?
Yeah. Who does it return to? What is return? And also, what can it repair while it's on its way
Exactly.
back to whatever it is? Yeah.
And I mean, I think that the power of movement, and it could, as we move through these different spaces or it could address the kind of particular space. So imagine that it's the actual object, right? That is welcomed, or it's taken from your center to this other platform, to this other one. It's going to engage with that context in a different way, because we are committed to engaging with that context and our community and our concerns. So it can be, it could be an anchor for addressing a particular
And
issue.
the object could return home to wherever that home is, even more powerful than
Yes.
how it left.
Of
In a more
course.
powerful state, spiritually powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.